The challenge of combining all three sports, swim, bike and run, into one continuous event has attracted more and more people.
And as a result, there are now more and more events to choose from.
If you're new to triathlon, it can seem a little overwhelming, and choosing your first event is quite a challenge.
But don't worry, we have broken it down and made a guide to help you.
So this is how to choose your first triathlon.
When working out what distance to choose, you need to consider your current fitness and also the timescale in which you've got to train before the event.
Obviously, a shorter distance triathlon is easier to complete as your first, but if you are more suited to endurance, then there's nothing to say you can't do a longer distance triathlon straight away.
I actually did a half Ironman distance as my first triathlon, as I knew that the distance would challenge me and it would really motivate me to train.
It's also worth noting that as the distances get longer in triathlon, the bike becomes a larger percentage of the race. So if you are a strong biker and not such a strong swimmer, then the longer distance triathlons may be a good option in the future.
It's easy to be lured into the big, well-known events for your first race, and that's completely fine if that's what excites you and got you motivated into the sport in the first place. But there are actually many smaller options out there, and they're just as fun and quite often a bit cheaper.
Yeah, many newcomers will actually opt for the small local races to test the water, quite literally, and so it doesn't put quite so much pressure on the day. Personally, that was my choice for my first event, but equally it needs to be an event that excites you.
Right, before we go any further, we probably should cover the different distances that are on offer for you to enter. So starting off with the super sprint, then there's the sprint, followed by the standard, also known as Olympic distance. And then there's the middle distance, also known as 70.3 or half Ironman. And finally, there's a full distance, also known as Ironman.
Okay, if you're new to swimming, then the thought of open water swimming can be a little bit daunting, but it's not actually as bad as you might think, although there are a few variables to bear in mind. So for example, if it's a lake swim or a quarry swim like this, then the water's likely to be pretty flat, unlike an ocean swim. But with a sea swim, you do have the added bonus of the salt content, making it a little bit more buoyant, so easier to swim in. And the same goes for a wetsuit swim. So if the water's cold enough and you get to wear a wetsuit, you've got extra buoyancy, making it easier again from that. So just check ahead of the race whether the water's cold enough. But don't worry, you can give yourself a far more pleasant introduction to the sport by finding a pool-based triathlon. Now, there's plenty to choose from, especially early in the season when it's too cold outside to swim in a lake or the sea. And you've got the added bonus of, well, heated water to start with. You've got a lane rope if you really need to hold on, and you've got the end of the wall just to break it up a little bit. Plus, all you actually need is a swimsuit or a tri-suit to be able to do your first race. And when it comes to transition, it'll be that much easier as well. Terrain tends to be the last thing you think about when you're booking a race.
Mallorca? That sounds lovely.
This is horrible.
Do a little research on the course profile, because if you know you're not good at hills, it's probably best to avoid a super hilly course for your first race.
The same goes for a technical, twisty-turny style course. If you're not so confident with your bike handling skills, then opt for a slightly smoother and more flowing course instead.
Most triathlon bike routes will be on public roads, and sometimes they're closed, but usually they're left open with marshals just to guide you, so that's worth bearing in mind.
Now, the terrain is not just about the bike. Make sure you check out the run course with regards to hills and also the surface. Now, the bike must be on asphalt, unless of course it's a cross triathlon, but the run can be cross country, it can be on the track, it can be on the road, or it can be a mix of all. So it's really worth checking it out to make sure that you do the right training for that race, and also you have the appropriate footwear. It's quite likely this is something you do naturally without putting too much thought into it. But if you do have a blank canvas on the location you fancy doing your first triathlon in, then there are a few points that help you narrow it down.
What is your budget? If you want to race abroad, then it's worth checking out any cheap flights or accommodation costs before you commit to the race. Last year, I chose to race in South Africa because I knew once I got there that it'd be fairly cheap due to the exchange rate, plus I had friends to stay with. And also, there was a really insignificant time difference, which is another thing worth bearing in mind.
Doing your first triathlon, or any triathlon, is made that bit more enjoyable with friends there to support or even race alongside. So it's maybe worth checking which events your friends or people in your club are planning on doing, or if you have a coach, if they're planning on attending any events, because seeing a familiar face will always help with those pre-race nerves and also post-race celebrations.
If you're anything like me, then you'll prefer to race somewhere warm, so check out the climate before you enter a race. But having said that, racing in conditions that you're used to and you train in all the time will make you more prepared. It might just mean you get a little bit cold.
Assess what kit you already have and plan whether you need to invest in any new kit, or could you get away with borrowing from some friends? And for example, do you have a wetsuit for a cold water swim? Or do you have the correct trainers for the terrain you're going to be running on? Or do you have the correct gear ratio set up on your bike for the course that you're going to be undertaking?
But don't worry, all you actually need is a working bike, a helmet, a swimsuit and a pair of trainers to be able to do your first triathlon.
All you need to do now is sit down and make a list of your criteria following this guide to find the event for you.
Then the final, yet possibly the hardest part, is to hit that enter button.
Remember, you can subscribe to GTN for free by clicking on the globe, and if you've enjoyed this, hit the thumb up button, and if you want a video on Jargon Busters, just click down here.
And to see our unwritten rules of triathlon video, just click down here.